Oh. Didn't think the video would start that quick. Normally it takes a few seconds for it to go through, not be like instantaneous. So yeah, a very rare appearance. But it seems to be coming back a little bit more than it was in terms of the gaming content. Just because I think this is an interesting topic that cropped up. I've been maybe talking about it before, I'm not sure. Can't remember, back to late last year, well, mid last year I should say. But I thought it was a rather interesting situation that has developed. Notably, the reports that Riot Games, behind one of the biggest games that is out there, coming under a lot of scrutiny. So yeah, it's been reported in a lot of the mainstream media, but I am going to use my usual source of Eurogamer, and then the actual source cited by them, Kotaku. They originally sort of broke the story mid last year, around August time. Basically, the investigation, from what I remember, was really looking at a lot of sexism and certainly a sexist workplace culture. It doesn't, I think, yeah, they use the pseudonym of Lacey in the original article about the culture of sexism in Riot, saying how she wanted to hire a woman into a big leadership role in the thing, and a lot of things were brought up onto how it was clearly not great. I mean, the main bit is when she tried to get leadership roles. Some people with the excuses were they're ladder climbers, they've got too much ego, they aren't gamer enough, they're too punchy, they didn't challenge convention enough. But basically the leadership team would veto sort of any female candidate that wanted to get leadership in the company. Every few months, Lacey said in this original report, a male boss of hers would comment in public meetings about her kids and husband must really miss her while she's at work. So one day she did an experiment of her own accord. After an idea she believed in fell flat during a meeting, she asked a male colleague to present the same idea to the same group of people days later. And lo and behold, the week after that, he went in, presented exactly pretty much the same sort of content, and the whole room was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And the person that did the presenting blushed with embarrassment and had tears in his eyes. Sort of proving the fact that clearly there is some sort of construct within that company of not respecting women. The key thing is, they've been working. They were working on it for months. So, if it published in August, that would have been, I think they said 5 months. So that would have been sort of Marchish, 2018. 5 months after starting reporting for the article, and days after Riot apparently learned about it, all of a sudden a diversity and inclusion page got put on its website. Which is a bit crazy. They're basically saying how there's no issues and everything. There's really no problems with sort of sorting it themselves. This then developed over the last few months in 5 current and former employees at Riot filing lawsuits against them, alleging that it's fostering a sexist workplace culture. Now, a few Thursdays back, well, no, it says last Thursday, so it would have been roughly around a week ago, Riot Games filed a motion to try and force 2 of the women whose suits revolved around the, I believe it's the California Equal Pay Act, into private arbitration, which basically means it'll be negotiated and talked about privately and not publicly, with no judge or jury being able to make make a decision on it. And as it says, if you sort of look at the sort of see if I can get they actually source a link here of sort of like a PDF looking at employment arbitration, and that study basically says that it'll be less likely by a sort of big amount that the employees will be able to hold employers accountable for alleged wrongdoings. In the motions that they presented a week ago, Riot's lawyer argued that these employees waived their rights to a jury trial when they signed arbitration agreements when they were hired. And so Riot staff, not just those affected by or those affected or closely affected by the suits, along with other stuff, they're planning to do a walkout this coming Monday, May the 6th. Because of basically the situations. Yeah, basically they felt it was conflicting messages from Riot's leadership. Going back to Kotaku's article, according to one current employee that asked to remain anonymous, some Riot workers have been considering a walkout for months, but basically the forced arbitration pushed them over the edge. They did issue a public apology several weeks after the report, bringing on a new diversity lead and promising to rethink its hiring and promotion practices. Several of the men that were accused of inappropriate behaviour were kept on the company for a number of months, including the COO, who only eventually got suspended without pay. So I guess what they're trying to say is that they weren't fired for those views. They were just suspended without pay, so technically they still held the role, although not getting paid for it. Additionally, the current employee said the leadership consistently promised transparency and actions to be taken and didn't deliver on the promise. And the forced arbitration news lit the spark, and some folks decided to take action. You know, there's the possibility that they could get fired, but the problem is, if it's a lot of the company that decides to do this, the problem is, oh, you're going to fire nearly all your workforce? It's clearly risky. Basically, the main ideas is they want a clear intention to end forced arbitration, a precise deadline within the next 6 months as to when that will actually be finished, and then also a commitment to not force arbitration on the women involved in the ongoing litigation against Riot. The precedent of this is actually Google. Google employees planned to walk out to end forced arbitration for its employees, and after a few months, Google in February said, "Okay, that's fine with us." Clearly, word got round Riot of this, and I guess when reached for comment, they said, quote, "We're proud of our colleagues for standing up for what they believe in. We always want rioters to have the opportunity to be heard, so we're sitting down today to listen to their opinions and learn more about their perspectives on arbitration. We'll also be discussing this topic during our bi-weekly all-company town hall on Thursday," which would have been May the 3rd. May the 2nd, sorry. "Both are important forums for us to discuss our current policy and listen to feedback, which are important parts of evaluating all our policies and procedures, including those related to arbitration." Four current employees were unable to confirm how many would be participating in the walkout. 2 of them expressed reticence actually about participating. According to one who says she doesn't plan to join, "I don't know the scale of the walkout, nor does anyone else I've spoken with, which is the primary reason I'm not participating." The employee notes she's also received a document designating the walkout's terms, times and meeting place before continuing, quote, "I think any work or organisation is a good and healthy thing, so I support it whether or not I'm participating in it." And yeah, the interesting bit is it's not just that. Going from Eurogamer and their Waypoint Vice article, basically there's been rumours of walkouts building since it's been walkouts been brewing among a number of folks with varying levels of investment. So I guess they're sort of indicating there that some people that have been with the company for a long time are sort of thinking about putting the foot down. Leadership constantly promised transparency and actions to be taken and didn't deliver on the promise. The chief diversity officer, so apparently the CDO, I guess you can call her, Angela Roseborough, responded via the Slack group on Riot's, I guess, servers, saying that the company recognised that some rioters are not feeling heard and acknowledged that reports around arbitration could leave staff feeling like we're not moving forward. Quote, "Personally, I completely understand how this may feel like a setback, but my hope is that through this storm will be a better vision of themselves." So basically, small group sessions were trying to be organised to invite employees to quote, "talk through concerns and provide context about where we've landed and why." And this then caused its own sort of problems, because some people, one source that I think was talking to Waypoint again, said, quote, "People were frustrated at yet another example of closed-door discussions instead of transparency. Rioters are sick of feeling like they have no visibility into what leadership is actually doing to improve." And although this is mainly about the Riot stuff, we're seeing a lot of this over recent months. I would say, in terms of problems, I guess, with the status quo in a lot of companies. We're seeing a lot of accusations of overworking people, the crunch, if you will, on various games recently. Red Dead Redemption 2 had it last year. Allegations in the last few weeks about Epic Games crunch on trying to get stuff for Fortnite on a regular basis. I believe the quote was somewhere in the region of 70 to 100 hours for some workers a week, which is a lot, ever so slightly. That'd be that'd basically be 4 days a week solid. That'd be 96 hours. Or 4 20-hour days, or anything like that. Just crazy stuff when you think about sort of mental health and burnout, which is what you don't want. We saw stuff from Activision, wanting the data of their employees, females that are looking for pregnancy, or sorry, that are, I shouldn't say looking for pregnancy, staff who are wanting to have a child, the implication being that, the reasoning that Activision was giving for using the data and harvesting it was so that they know that the health and well-being of their staff is good. But of course, the cynical view is those that aren't going to be productive enough, those that, God forbid, have a problem with their baby, it has to go into intensive care, will sort of get shunned and eventually sort of, I wouldn't say pushed out, but sort of trying to find the right words, getting phased out, I guess, by the company in favour of other people that don't have those issues. We've seen that. We've seen just plenty of places where it seems the managerial sort of hierarchy and investors and all that sort of stuff are in a completely different... I mean, it has been for perhaps since the dawn of time, that there's always been a problem of communication, really, in the majority of companies. I'm not saying everybody, between the sort of head honchos, investors, and management stuff, and the people that are actually doing the major part of the work, the game development, the marketing, and so anything sort of like that. And if this Riot walkout does happen and it leads to sort of some stuff, because I'm thinking in sort of this day and age, to gain a lot of good trust in the public's mind, not just in the minds of investors and sort of the stock market. Having full transparency on certain issues would actually help a lot. We've seen a lot of quiet skullduggery again in recent years. The No Man's Sky sort of launch and stuff that wasn't being said that now, quite a lot of it turned out to be quite a fair bit of spin, I'd say. But over time, because they've become transparent and sort of revealing what they're doing, we're actually seeing a game which had a sort of thriving community grow from the basis of people picking it up and then just dropping it. But then at the same time, because of that nasty bad taste at the start of the thing, it sort of is still there as sort of the spectre of sort of what not to do, even though it could be argued that they really have turned it around, and what was sort of a average game is actually a really excellent game. It's always the big issue to have, and sometimes you can see that in development of certain games. Was Fallout 76 pushed out way too early? If it had had more time to sort of develop, would that not have become the mess that it was at launch, and really still hasn't recovered from it to this day, sort of 6 months on? In reverse of that, For Honor was like quite a while in development, and that just never sort of really cottoned on to the majority of people, and it's only sort of a very staunch, loyal fan base that's probably keeping that rolling to this day. But then at the same time, people don't want the same games. The amount of criticism that we've had over annual sort of Assassin's Creeds, which led to the reboot button, and now we're getting, oh look, they're coming back as annual ones. So I feel that people might get burnt out on that if they announce another Assassin's Creed for the end of this year, because we've already had 2 sort of back-to-back in Origins and Odyssey. We've seen it with Call of Duty, literally in the numbers. Despite the fact I think it was like it was the best-selling game of the year with like 10 million copies or something, Activision wasn't happy with it. With the sales. Same goes with Destiny and Destiny 2. The problem that had was there was a lot of the stuff, which again was pushed on by investors in terms of getting them as much money out of it as possible, milking the cow, if you will. Milking the cash cow. Was too much of a detriment to what was widely received to be a much better game than Destiny 1 was. At least it's interesting, because Destiny 1, people played it and then it was like, okay, that's it. And the early part of Destiny 2, everyone thought, why wasn't this just an expansion for Destiny 1? It doesn't feel different enough. Over time, with the DLC that they added over those 12 months, it sort of did develop and is probably a much better game overall than Destiny 1 Complete Edition, if you want to call it that, is. The only issue being, it financially, even though it was the second best-selling game of 2017, I guess, and it did well for quite a bit of its 2018 expansions as well, it caused so much of, I guess, a loss in the eyes of Activision that they were willing to give the IP and everything directly back to Bungie so Bungie could do it independently. The real twist here is, if Bungie decides to develop a Destiny 3, let's say, and try and not include anything that Activision may have forced upon them, possibly the microtransaction stuff, trying to do a GTA and, as I say, milk the cash cow, if Destiny 3 sells better than Destiny 1 or 2, or you know, I doubt both combined, because that'd be a lot. But if going to sort of the core and making that good and getting rid of all the extremities makes it a much better option for gamers, it's just this miscommunication. I guess that's what the topics really of this video is about, as it's evolved into. It's the miscommunication of, you know, saying, oh, well, we're going to be transparent about things that are happening in this company. And then at the same time, two people that are bringing lawsuits of some respect against the company are being forced into having to go into private negotiations and hearings rather than public negotiations, because there's a clause in the contract that specifies. We're even seeing it in wrestling to some extent. People wanting out of their contracts, being maybe more vocal than others, and those that are being more vocal are, in some cases, getting time added onto their contracts because of injuries that happened. So it's like, well, you would have been active during that 2 to 3 month period. We're adding that onto your contract. Because they don't want the exodus of people leaving, going to other companies. I think a lot of them see, at least in terms of the wrestling stuff, that they're all going to jump to AEW. But in some cases, I think some of them, because of their profile, might be better to actually just go round on the global independent scene, and they might make more money from that, being able to go on a schedule that they feel up to, depending on the scale of the talent, than any other sort of stuff. It's just this might be the big issue in 20... You know, we've seen, like, Me Too and things like that, you know, Not in My Name, to some extent, in the last few months, the Extinction Rebellion stuff in London, and in some places around the world, regarding climate change, trying to sort of make a stand, if you will. Some of the stuff I may agree with, some of the stuff I may not. Some of the stuff I may get the view, but actions that they did, I feel, might have been detrimental and making them look not great in some sort of light. But if 2019 can sort of be way more of an effort, maybe on equality, and, you know, making sure people aren't worked out, people aren't abused, if there was just somehow like more goodwill shown in various different aspects, maybe, you know, the bad publicity wouldn't be as bad. I don't know. It's a lot of things. This video has been going on for quite a while. My usual rambles. Haven't done one like this too much in a while, though. You know, going down the rabbit hole to see where it goes. That's why I sometimes prefer doing these sort of not very scripted as much, because it's just where my mind goes and just some of the topics that I have feelings about. Maybe not sort of passionate stuff, because I'm not an honest big fan of League of Legends, but I appreciate that there's a lot of people that are, and so, and because it makes a lot of money for the gaming industry, having that sort of be something that's actually a good part of the industry when we see all the sort of seediness of microtransactions and pushing things out the door way too early than they should be, things like that. You know, it'd be good to see sort of a real good success story, because no doubt in the weeks and months, years to come, we're going to see more negative aspects of the industry come out. Hopefully these negative aspects will eventually get seen as being, you know, oh, well, something that's in the past and we need to sort of disregard it or discard it, I should say. Discard it from company mantra and things like that to sort of be a much more positive aspect, if you will. So yeah, this was a good old 30-minute ramble. I mean, I hope you sort of appreciate what I'm sort of trying to get forward, but it's something that I wanted to talk about, and it sort of gets me into sort of doing some more of these sort of maybe more opinion-based stuff. That, and I didn't want to do the Sonic stuff because everybody already said it's shit. Or at least most people have said it's bad. Case in point. Oh, look. People listening to sort of feedback and sort of getting, you know, management listening to what the underlings say. Because in all honesty, when you do a film, it's the people that are going to pay to see it that are going to be the ones that really want to know. The feedback that the director's now got is, we know you don't like the appearance, we're going to try and change it up in some shape or form. Which, how they're going to be able to do that in 6 months? Maybe have to do reshoots, because, you know, if Sonic's supposed to be a certain height or certain appearance, they might have to do reshoots on certain things. We'll have to see, but if it ultimately means that people are going to accept it, you know, surely that's got to be a good thing. Anyway, I've talked too much, especially because this video will take ages to get sent over to Owen to be able to be uploaded. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you for watching if you have sat through all of this. Check out all the other content here on the network. My snack stashes, Owen's Sip and Snack, Voices of Liberty performances, maybe some Halloween Horror Night stuff if Owen gets round to it this year. AJ's movie reviews, the verses when the movies get pitted against each other, awards content when we get to later on in the year. Probably other stuff that I can't even remember. It's probably all coming here. So with that, I'm back to my pasta.